Welcome to the 707, a weekly half-hour program produced by KRCB, a service of NorCal Public Media. The 707 features voices and stories from your community, stories that explore the timelessness of beloved characters, and stories that show how we are connected to each other. I'm your host, Michelle Marques. This week, we're continuing our deep dive into an art installation called Peanuts on Parade that got its start in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Peanuts on Parade started in 2000. It was when the city of St. Paul, where Charles Schulz grew up, wanted to give him a tribute because it was shortly after he announced his retirement. And so the city wanted to give Schulz a tribute of some kind, and they didn't really know exactly what they wanted to do. He agreed to it, but as long as it wasn't going to be about him, he wanted the tribute to be focused on the characters of Peanuts.
That's William Johnson, a Peanuts historian who lives in Minnesota and has written 2 books about the sculptures, one covering the St. Paul series and one on the Santa Rosa series.
And the organizers found a company that was local here that was also already licensed in Peanuts merchandise, a company called Tivoli 2. They were capable of creating large statues. They came upon the idea of decorating the streets of St. Paul with 5-foot statues of Snoopy, being the most popular character, obviously. And they really only thought it was going to be a 1-year thing. Initially, the reports came out that it was going to be about 50 statues. The response was overwhelming. They got tons of people wanting to sponsor statues. They got tons of people wanting to decorate them. And they finally settled on 101. At the end of the summer, they wanted to auction off some of these statues to create a bronze statue in downtown St. Paul. When the auction came around, they kept calling all the sponsors, and nobody wanted to give up their statue. It was such a hit through the summer, they knew people were coming from all over the United States and even different countries to go on the scavenger hunts and find the statues. So people were being drawn to their businesses like they had never seen before. So finally, the organizers had to get a hold of Tivoli 2 again, and they had to come up with several designs that were brand new just to put into the auction to raise money. Most projections thought that the statues would probably go for $5,000 to $7,000, maybe a couple of them hitting $10,000 or more. The very first statue sold for $32,000.
Wow.
So everything up to this point had already just been blown out of the water from their expectations. So the mayor of St. Paul, who at the time was Norm Coleman, even during the time that the auction was going off and every statue was $20,000 or more, they were raising tons of money. And at that point, he finally started to realize we might have to do this for a second year. And so every year just kind of flowed right into the next one. With the popularity and the demand for not only people to participate, to sponsor the statues, the public demand wanting more and more and more, it just kept rolling from 1 year into the next. So it finally ended at 5 years, statues each year being Snoopy, Charlie Brown, Lucy, Linus. Final year was Snoopy on top of his doghouse.
William Johnson met Jeannie Schulz, Charles Schulz's widow, at the statue auction at the Mall of America in 2004, and she asked him to share the photos of the St. Paul statues with the Schulz Museum as Santa Rosa was about to launch its series of Peanuts on Parade in 2005.
A big event at the museum where the artists and sponsors would come in and kind of mingle, and they would talk about the project and all that. So they asked me to not only bring my photo albums to put it on display so people could see what we did in St. Paul, but also to speak to them and explain to them what to expect. People walk by these statues when they're on the street, and the things that I saw when I was trying to take my pictures, teenagers would walk along and give Linus a high five. Businessmen in business suits would walk through and scrape their hand across the top of Charlie Brown's head. Things like that. It really looked like it was something so natural. I don't even know if they realized what they were doing. It was just such a connection between the general population and the characters. I honestly don't think that they really knew what they were doing. It was just, I just walked by and I just want to touch them.
Yeah,
And
it is. It's a really magical thing. I've seen that too. It's really fun.
yeah, it's very, very special. So I think that's what they kind of wanted to convey, because Craig told me, he's like, that information is going to mean more coming from you seeing it in St. Paul than it would be from me.
It makes sense that Charles Schulz would be honored by his hometown of St. Paul, but how did a design firm in the Twin Cities end up creating these statues? Hart Johnson, no relation to Peanuts historian William Johnson, says it started with jewelry at Tivoli too.
My sister, Randy Johnson, who had a jewelry store that she started in 1980, and it was called Tivoli Jewelers. She did one-of-a-kind custom jewelry. Eventually, she came up with the idea to do themed charm bracelets, all different ones with 6 or 8 little charms on them. And then in 1987, our dad said, why don't you do a Monopoly charm bracelet and use the icons from Monopoly and put them on a bracelet? And so she called Parker Brothers, and eventually, after many phone calls and conversations, she actually got the license to do the Monopoly icons on a bracelet. And so from there, she really reached out to a lot of other companies to start doing these themed charm bracelets. Being from St. Paul, Minnesota, which is where Charles Schulz was from, she really always admired Charles Schulz. And so she reached out to him and said, I'm doing charm bracelets of all these other characters, and I would love to do charm bracelets of the Peanuts characters. Eventually, she got invited to come for a meeting in Santa Rosa, and that was in 1989. And I actually went with Randy, my sister, and we were able to meet Charles Schulz in person, which was, a real thrill. We had a wonderful conversation and a lot of good memories from that first meeting. It really did kind of create a long-term friendship between Charles Schulz and my sister, and actually myself and our family. We got to kind of know him pretty well, spend quite a bit of time with him, and do some additional work with him on a variety of things.
Over the years, Tivoli 2's business began to expand, both with more clients and with the size of the items they made, from charm bracelets to cookie jars, and eventually to a 30-foot frog statue for a rainforest cafe. And then in early 2000, St. Paul's mayor, Norm Coleman, reached out for help with a tribute to Schulz.
He invited Randy to a meeting to brainstorm what can we do to honor Charles Schulz for his 50 years of cartooning. And then Randy also was familiar with some things that I'll call him Sparky, because that's what we call him, that Sparky. There was a particular project that he loved that dressed up his characters in different clothing and then toured around Europe. And they were in the meeting kind of brainstorming, what could we do? The idea came up, why don't we do 6-foot Snoopys and paint them different ways and decorate them different ways and put them all around town? They asked Randy to call Sparky and say, can we get approval to move forward on this project? Randy called and talked to him, and it was a Wednesday afternoon, and they talked about the idea of the Peanuts on Parade project, or really it was at that point just doing Snoopys. It was really just a 1 year, let's put Snoopys all around St. Paul, paint them different ways. And he said, okay, that's fine. There was also the idea that there would be money that hopefully would be raised through these statues and the sale of these statues ultimately that would go to creating bronze sculptures of the Peanuts characters. Randy went back, told the committee, he approved this and we can move forward. And they said, great, tell him thank you. And we want to get going on this right away. And so she called his wife, Jeannie, said, he's not feeling great. I'll have him call you tomorrow. And we woke up the next day and Charles Schulz had passed away. So it was really a tough time for the family and for all Peanuts lovers. And we started working with the family and said, this is something that Sparky had wanted to do. And they provided incredible support to move forward with it.
Charles M. Schulz, Sparky, to those who knew him, passed away on Saturday, February 12, 2000, at the age of 77. Since this was one of the last things that Sparky had his hands on and approved, what do you think he would have thought about the Peanuts on Parade series in St. Paul and then subsequently in Santa Rosa?
Well, I think one of the really special parts of the project became the involvement of his family. And I think that was really special that they came to really embrace this whole tribute and get so much pleasure out of it and know that it was bringing so much pleasure to so many people. I mean, all around the world, people would travel to St. Paul. They had a map every year and people would put pins in it showing where they were from. And there were people from all over the world. They came to see the Peanuts characters. So I think what Sparky would have thought is it's pretty amazing that people love his characters so much to come from all over the world to see them. And I think he'd think it was really nice for artists that they were able to be part of this tribute and be able to work with the Peanuts characters and have a chance to really like expand on each character in a special, unique way.
In the next segment of the 707, a tour guide in St. Paul shares these statues with fans from around the world. And Peanuts fans come to Santa Rosa to share their passion at an event called Beagle Fest. This is KRCB.
KRCB is Sonoma County's NPR station, featuring the voices, sounds, and culture that make our home unique. From the heartwarming tales of postcards,
our grandmother was the founder of Juneteenth in Sonoma County,
to the Arts Briefs series shining a spotlight on the incredible youth in the arts scene.
Mariachi can express everything that you feel.
And farm tales.
We live in this beautiful area that allows all forms of success in agriculture.
Your stories, your station. KRCB 104.9, Sonoma County's NPR station.
Welcome back to the 707 on KRCB. I'm your host, Michelle Marques. People in St. Paul fell in love with their statues of Charlie Brown and his friends, and they are still a draw today. Cynthia Schreiner-Smith owns and operates Sin City Tours in the Twin Cities, and she says people from all over the world still love to see Snoopy and the gang when touring St. Paul.
It was really fun as we did tours around town to point them out to people, especially people from out of town who had no idea that Charles Schulz was from St. Paul. And then the deal was every year at the end of the year, the statues would be gathered up.
She says their yearly statue auction happened at the Mall of America.
It's just so cool to think that they are now all over the world after living in St. Paul for a while. And then the money was used to buy permanent bronze statues of the Peanut characters in the Landmark Plaza. More of the money was used for scholarships for the Minneapolis School of Art, where Charles Schulz went and learned to draw. So it's kind of fun to have all those connections and tell people from all over the world about it. I have a group that comes from Sweden twice a year to walk. They're Swedish farmers. They don't speak a lot of English. But when they see Snoopy, they always start shouting, "Snowbin, Snowbin." I'm like, what's a Snowbin? Well, that's Snoopy in Swedish, I guess. So that's super fun to see that they're famous all over the world and they all get very excited they're in the hometown of Charles Schulz.
The third year of Peanuts on Parade in St. Paul was a special one for Schreiner-Smith personally.
2002 was Lucy, because that was the year that we went crazy looking for Lucy. In fact, I still have my book, Looking for Lucy, with all of the pictures in it and the newspaper articles and the big poster. Look how worn out it was as we drove around town and found every single Lucy statue. And it was a challenge because they moved them a lot. The reason we did that is our daughter was named Lucille. We called her Lucy. And so we set ourselves the challenge of getting her photo in front of every single Lucy statue, 109 of them. It was great. And as a tour guide, I was loving it. It was like our own weird summer 5-month long tour of the city. Some of them in places we never had been before because it's a little industrial park, and they had a statue. So we went and we would tell people that we were doing, and they either looked at us and went, "That is cool," or they looked at it and went, "You are nuts." And I said, probably both.
There's one statue that really means a lot to Shriner Smith and her daughter, who is now 25.
It was Breast Cancer Awareness Lucy. And I have a picture of her. It was in front of Regions Hospital, which is a big level 1 trauma center in downtown St. Paul. And I look at it now and I go, what an interesting photo. 2 years after that photo was taken, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. 23 years after that photo was taken, she started her job as a nurse in that hospital behind us.
At the end of July, Peanuts historian William Johnson invited me to a dinner at Cottingtown where some of the Santa Rosa Peanuts on Parade artists were gathering, as well as people who were in town for something called Beagle Fest, an event organized by the Peanuts Collector Club for those who collect, sell, and trade Peanuts memorabilia. I had a chance to talk with a mother and daughter who were attending Beagle Fest.
I'm Carol Pilgrim, and I am from Dousman, Wisconsin, which is near Milwaukee, and I'm here with my daughter, Karen.
Yes, I'm Karen, and I run CollectPeanuts.com. I'm a big Peanuts fan.
What is it about Peanuts that is appealing to you?
Oh, it's the characters. As a kid growing up, I guess I recognized myself in some of the characters, especially Lucy. And I could be crabby at times, but I could also think I could be a good friend or a good sister. So it's just the characters. They're like other everyday people, and you can recognize friends and family in some of those characters as well.
The Pilgrims made a visit to Santa Rosa in 2010, and they were hooked.
The museum was open. We got to see that, and the rink again. I remember Karen got to skate on the rink with Snoopy that time.
Yeah, Snoopy kept me from falling down, which I really appreciate. Thank you, Snoopy.
Even though we're from Wisconsin, we don't know how to ice skate.
Are they going to take back your driver's license because you don't know how to skate?
I don't think so.
I love cheese too much for them to kick me out of Wisconsin.
So in terms of collecting, how big is your collection? What do you have?
I have probably well over 16,000 pieces. I've been collecting since I was 10, and I'm well over 10 now.
Two artists who worked on the Santa Rosa Peanuts on Parade statues, Brian and Nancy Roberts, are sitting next to me at the restaurant. Together, they worked on 4 different statues over the span of 5 years. I asked Nancy what it was like during the paint-offs at the Grace Pavilion.
During the 3 days, it was extremely intense. We would not get a lot of sleep, a lot of pressure. Yeah. But it was a joy to see all of us artists were all in the same boat. And it was great pleasure to visit with everyone, make friends, see what everybody's doing, maybe learn some new techniques from somebody else, and all working together. It was an extreme amount of fun.
Have you gone back to find yours?
None of ours are to be found. We have no idea where any of the 4 that we did are.
The one possibility I'm thinking might be the Charlie that went to Holly's Paints. They closed down a few years ago. Maybe he went home with the owner. Unless the owner retired to Hawaii.
We don't know, and he wasn't on the list.
When your pieces were put out into the world, would you go and watch people come up and interact?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The gatherings of the statues before their dispersion was especially good because they'd all be lined up cheek and jowl in a circle, and the public would come through with their kids and their popcorn and whatnot, and really, really enjoy them. That was good to see.
The 75th anniversary of the Peanuts comic strip is on October 2nd, 2025. Gina Hunsinger is the director of the Schulz Museum in Santa Rosa. She says there are plenty of ways the museum is celebrating this milestone.
We have 2 main exhibits. One's about Sparky's humor, and it talks about the different things he did in the strip that make us laugh. And the other one is just sort of an overall look at the different themes in Peanuts, like the flying ace and just the different things that people really enjoy in the strip. So it's wonderful to see his art up close and original format. And then we have some really, really cool events. The biggest one we've got is October 4th, which is a Saturday. Snoopy's going to be here for hugs and photos. We've got free chocolate chip cookies because, Snoopy does love chocolate chip cookies. And then people can learn to draw the Peanuts characters and make Snoopy dog ears. So it'll be fun for the whole family, and costumes are encouraged.
There's also an honor that Charles Schulz won at San Diego Comic-Con. Can you tell me about this?
Oh, yes. We were surprised by this Icon Award, and they've only given it out, I believe, 11 times over the history of the San Diego Comic Con. It's really for somebody who's really changed the industry. So it was such an honor for Charles Schulz to get that on the 75th anniversary.
I asked Hunsinger to reflect on the legacy of Charles Schulz and why people love to visit the museum.
When people come here, they come with their friends, and they most always have like something on that's Peanuts. I just encourage people to smile and to come here and just have some fun with people. That's what we need right now. We need a little bit of fun.
You'll find the first Peanuts on Parade episode on our website at krcb.org/the707. I'm your host and producer of this program, Michelle Marques. Email topic and guest suggestions to the707@krcb.org. This show is a service of NorCal Public Media. Our president and CEO is Darren Lachelle.